Going on? Welcome to the Matt Bernier Show on DRFTV. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. This is the recap edition, going back, taking a look at two Grade 1 races from this past weekend, the weekend of July the 20th, one from Monmouth Park, one from Saratoga Racecourse. We'll take a look at the Grade 1 Haskell as well as the Grade 1 Coaching Club American Oaks, give you a stakes montage, some thoughts, some quick hits, as well as the weekend's best as far as Beyer speed figures are concerned. However you listen to this thing, thank you for doing so. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify. However you listen, please rate, review, and subscribe. Questions, comments, concerns beneath the video player on YouTube or directly to me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. Let's waste no time and dive into it. Race number 12. Not really race number 12, but the scheduled 12th race, that's what it's called, at Monmouth on Saturday, given all of the issues that went on, was the Grade 1 Haskell Invitational for 3-year-olds, a mile and an eighth. Let's take a look at the field. 6 of them signed on. Post-time favorite, no surprise, Maximum Security. The horse that was disqualified from first in the Kentucky Derby, he was bet down to odds of 4-5. The second choice was King for a Day, the horse that defeated him in the local prep for the Haskell. That would have been the Pegasus. He went off at odds of 5-2. Mucho Gusto coming in from the West Coast for Bob Baffert went off at odds of 3-1. Let's take a look and see how this race played out with the stretch run of this year's Haskell.
Security, Maximum Security, cuts the corner. Mucho Gusto is going to make him work. Maximum Security has his mind on business. He leads by a half length. Mucho Gusto trying so hard to go by. Maximum Security just in front. Mucho Gusto, valiant, but Maximum Security has won the TVG.com Haskell Invitational.
Maximum Security prevails by a length and a quarter over Mucho Gusto, who ran second at odds of 3-1. He was 8 lengths clear of Spun to Run, who finished third at odds of 34-1. Let's take a look at Maximum Security. He is 5 of 7 lifetime, 6 times in the exacta, but again, factor in the Kentucky Derby situation, he has never finished or crossed the line outside of the top 2 in his 7-race career. He's over $1.2 million in career earnings. He is owned and bred by Gary and Mary West, trained by Jason Service, ridden to victory by Luis Saez, and the pedigree at the bottom of the horse card. He is by New Year's Day out of an Anasheed mare named Lil Indy. 102 Beyer for Maximum Security, winning this year's Haskell Invitational. 128 pace adjusted. Timeform US rating, the raw number is a 125, so they're pretty close. I think you can make the argument that perhaps the Beyer is a hair on the light side, but again, we're splitting hairs over 2 to 3 points. I like the way that he finished. He came home in 12.6. Pretty solid final fraction there, especially at a mile and an eighth, given the fractions of this race. 22 and 4, 46 and 3, 10 for 3/4. They stopped the clock in 47 and 2. Obviously an odd day down at Monmouth with the whole scheduling situation where they were going to try to go. I think it was crazy for them to even try to run. Even the fact that they got through all the stakes races, I just don't know why you couldn't have just postponed it to Sunday, but I don't know all the logistics, so easy for me to sit here and say all that without knowing all the details. But if everybody else was canceling, probably you had so little to gain by trying to run. What the hell is the point? Neither here nor there. Let's talk about the race itself. Again, Maximum Security has proven that he is not the straightest runner. And I don't want... I see so many people continue to bring up the riders and continue to bring up Luis Saez. Can we just acknowledge that perhaps it's the horse? I don't know that it's always going to be the rider's fault. I understand they are generally the ones that are sort of responsible for keeping the mount in control. Well, sometimes a horse is an animal. He's got a mind of his own. And I still maintain Maximum Security is not he's not the most polished all around as far as the mental aspect, in my opinion, when you see him on the racetrack. I don't know what his disposition is off the track. Maybe he's, like a cow. Maybe he is just as kind as can be. But when he's running, it doesn't feel like anyway. Mentally, he is completely there. Because he does some goofy things every once in a while, whether he's ducking in, whether the lead changes are a little bit peculiar. He was pretty clean as far as those mechanics are concerned on Saturday. But again, he drifted in. It impeded King for a Day. Initially, when I was watching the race the first time through, I said, and I didn't hear any audio, I said, King for a Day just completely dropped anchor, and I missed that part. Obviously, we'll go back and watch the replay. He was impeded pretty badly, forced to steady hard. So you're supposed to just draw a line through this race for King for a Day. Maximum Security needs to figure that out, I think, if he's going to end up being a major player for the Breeders' Cup Classic. I don't know that you can afford to do that sort of thing against better horses, theoretically better horses. The speed figures are the thing that I think need to be acknowledged for Maximum Security, and perhaps he will not need to improve in a year like this where it feels like, and we'll see what happens in the Whitney in 2 weeks. I think that's going to be a race that goes a long way as far as indicating what these 3-year-olds, how they're going to stack up against the older horses, because it has been a little bit of an underwhelming older horse campaign for these longer races. The Met Mile was clearly a very strong race, but as far as, going out to a mile and an eighth, a mile and a quarter, the older horses really haven't done anything to knock your socks off either. When I look at this and I see Maximum Security earns a 102 buyer, for perspective's sake, he's run 7 times. His last 5 buyers, 102, 100, 101, 101, 102. So he's not making any real headway as far as those speed figures are concerned. He's always been fast, and it's not that he's getting any slower. He's just not taking that I think necessary step forward for a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, it doesn't mean that he's not capable of doing that, but you do start to get to a point where once we've seen an overall body of work, you do start to wonder, through 7 starts, you haven't really made any giant improvements. This is the time of year that I think you usually see that next move forward from the 3-year-olds when we get into the Travers time, or let's just say September. I think that's when, I know a lot of people say, well, is there 3-year-olds, they're not going to get any better. Well, I don't believe that. I think they take another step forward sort of in that late August, early September range. And that's when you really will find out if they can make that big move. And then as a 4-year-old, I think they take another step forward. We saw that with California Chrome. We saw that with Gunrunner, horses like that. The horses that are allowed to run as 4-year-olds. Maximum Security, the big thing for me will be the next race. Can he take that necessary step forward? And again, I keep saying necessary. Maybe it is not necessary in a year like this. Maybe he doesn't need to move his game up to a 110 buyer in order to win a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic. We'll find out with the Whitney. Again, that's really the race that I have circled. That's going to be telling for these 3-year-olds. Kind of the benchmark will be set. Are you capable of running with those kind of horses from a numbers standpoint? Maximum Security, if he jumps up into a 107, 108, 110 range in the Travers, which it sounds like they're going to point to that race, and they're, I don't want to say non-committal, but if he's good to go, they'll run there. If not, they'll wait for the Pennsylvania Derby. If I were involved with the horse, I would wait for the Pennsylvania Derby. No, to me, no real need to run at a mile and a quarter unless you're thinking year-end awards. But even having said that, to me, I feel like if you were to go and win the Pennsylvania Derby, now you've got the Florida Derby, the Haskell, and the Pennsylvania Derby. It would all obviously would depend on what happens with those horses up at Saratoga, whoever won the Travers. But I think you would have a pretty solid case anyway. Clearly, knowing that the Breeders' Cup would settle a number of things depending on how that whole thing shook down. But you would have a pretty solid case for year-end awards with the Florida Derby, the Haskell, and the Pennsylvania Derby, depending on what everyone else ends up doing. In my opinion, I would go that route with a horse like this and then go to the mile and a quarter Breeders' Cup Classic, but I'm sure the connections will do what they think is correct for the horse. It's just, I don't know what we're going to see from those horses that are already at Saratoga. We'll find out. The Jim Dandy will be on Saturday, this coming Saturday anyway. We'll see. I'm sure that'll be a very interesting race because it seems like it's a pretty wide open event. But if any of those horses take the necessary step forward up into that low 100, mid 100 range, and who knows, maybe the 102 that Maximum Security seems to be comfortable living in, that range, maybe that's going to be enough. I think what we do need to acknowledge, though, is that he's just a nice horse. He's a good horse. He shows up. He gives you what he's got each and every time. I'd love him to just be a little bit on the straighter side. Don't get so drifty. I mean, this is 2 of his last 3 races on the far turn. He has drifted. I'd like to get that straightened out a little bit. But look, he's hard to argue that he's not a good horse, and he is not one of the leading lights as far as the 3-year-olds are concerned. Mucho Gusto, I was encouraged by this effort. I picked him in this race. I thought he was trending the right direction for Baffert, and if he was going to get the mile and an eighth, it would be at a race and a track like Monmouth for the Haskell. Well, he got it, but the problem was he just got beat by a better horse. Yes, he was a little bit wider than Maximum Security was, but I don't think it was enough to really make a difference. If it was an instance where he lost by a quarter of a length or a neck or, however you want to put that out, perhaps then I could sit there and say, the distance was really the difference maker. I don't think it was the case here. A length and a quarter, is enough where I don't think one path is really In my opinion, anyway. I don't think that was enough to turn the tables. 100 buyer for Mucho Gusto, 127 pace adjusted time form US rating. And as far as the rest of the field is concerned, solid enough runners. Really, King for a Day was the other one that we needed to touch on. And again, you're just supposed to draw a line through this. I still wouldn't rule him out for a race like the Travers if they choose to go that route with him, because I do think King for a Day is a good horse. But Maximum Security, he's proven time and time again that he is one of the best of his generation. I'm now thinking bigger picture. Sure, they want to get the 3-year-old champion, and deservedly so, and understandable. But as far as Breeders' Cup Classic possibilities are concerned, because this was a win and you're in, he is in the Breeders' Cup Classic, is a 102 or a low 100 buyer enough to win? Maybe this year it is. We'll find out with races like the Whitney and the Pacific Classic what the older horses are capable of right now at these longer distances. But there's a part of me that wants to see this horse take another step forward. I want to see him in the Travers or in the Pennsylvania Derby get up into the 106, 107, 110 range. If he can do that, then I think you're looking at a prime candidate for the Breeders' Cup Classic. If he stays in this low 100 range, I'm a little bit unsure. It'll all depend on what the older horses do. What we do know, one of the leaders, if not the outright leader of the 3-year-old division, is Maximum Security. He gets the job done in the Grade 1 Haskell Invitational. 102 buyer, 128 pace adjusted time form US rating. Field for the Grade 1 Coaching Club American Oaks up at Saratoga on Sunday because of the delayed card on Saturday, or canceled, I should say. They moved that entire card over to Sunday. Let's take a look at the field. Only 5 3-year-old fillies signed on, going 9 furlongs on the main track. All eyes on Guarana to find out, would she be able to handle 2 turns? Would she be able to handle a mile and an eighth? Would she be able to handle X, Y, and Z? You name it. Because so far, through 2 starts, she had been visually sensational. How would she handle this? Would the distance get to her? Would anything else get to her? Ultimately, it did not. Here's a stretch run at CCA Oaks.
Topic is on the scene, and Point of Honor comes wide. They're into the stretch. And Jose Ortiz says, let's go, Guarana. Coming down to the 8th pole, trying to hold this lead. It's now 2.5. On the outside, Point of Honor is running on in second. Guarana trying to get another 16th. Point of Honor running out of time and ground, and Guarana kicks away again. Guarana has won the Coaching Club American Oaks over Point of Honor.
Guarana prevails at odds of 1-5 over Point of Honor, who runs second as the second choice at odds of 7-2. Off topic rounds out your trifecta at odds of 31-1. Let's take a look at Guarana. Perfect 3 of 3 lifetime, just under $700,000 in career earnings. Owned and bred by Three Chimneys Farm in Kentucky. Trained by Chad Brown, ridden to victory by Jose Ortiz. The pedigree, she's by Ghost Zapper out of a distorted humor mare named Magical World. 92 buyer, 113 pace adjusted time form US rating, 115 raw number for time form US. For Point of Honor, a 91 buyer, 113 pace adjusted time form US rating, 114 raw number for her. This was an interesting race for a number of reasons. Guarana gets out there, sets what I think are soft fractions for this level and at this distance. 24-1, 49-2 for a half, 13-2 for 3/4. They stop the clock in 49-3. She's out there on the front. Yes, she's taking token pressure, but a filly of this quality, she should just be able to go on with it, and she did just that. I found it interesting that she ducked out pretty significantly when she was hit left-handed by Jose going down the lane. Now, I don't know, to me anyway, that signifies that she was tired. I think she's still green. Keep in mind, this is her 3rd lifetime start, her first time going 2 turns, probably the first time she even felt the stick left-handed. Because when you take a look and see, usually in an instance like that, I'd be looking for a horse to hop back to her left lead, or I'd be looking at the final 1/8 of a mile to see her slowing down significantly. That wasn't the case. The final 1/8, she came home in 12:49. Compare that to a horse like Point of Honor, who came home in 12:32. So yes, Point of Honor was finishing better, but it's not as though Guarana was coming to a crawl. She didn't change the leads back to her left, which is, to me, a positive sign. I think she just green figuring things out. Now, having said all that, I don't know that I love her going out to 1.25 miles. I don't know that the Alabama is a race that I would be just chomping at the bit to go and bet her. On the flip side, a horse like Point of Honor, I would be all in on that, because when you look at the way this race was run, yes, it was a relatively tight field, so how far back was she, when it was all said and done? But Point of Honor came from last. She was wide going around the first turn. She was about 3-4 paths wide out in the clear. Compare that to Guarana, who was on the lead, setting the soft fractions, glued to the rail basically throughout. And the fact that Point of Honor came out, and when Guarana drifted out there under the left-handed urging, I don't want to say that Point of Honor had to stop running or she had to take up, but she was definitely, you could see a little bit of a movement there. So she acknowledged that the filly came out into her. I thought she finished really well, and to me, with the gallop out, you combine all that, put it all together. I think Point of Honor, to me, is a prime win contender already for a race like the Alabama. Hopefully she gets there and everything seems okay. Mile and a quarter, that seems right in her wheelhouse. Guarana, I'm not suggesting she can't get it. But I do wonder if this sort of distance, if this is going to be her bread and butter, a mile and an eighth, a mile, those type of races. So I don't know what the connections will choose to do. If I were involved, and again, this is the only thing I can do in an instance like this. I talked about it with maximum security. If I were involved, just my 2 cents, if I were involved with Guarana, I would probably wait for a race like the Cotillion. Run her at a mile and a 16th at Parks. It's a grade 1. Just continue to add that to the resume. And you know that a mile and an eighth is going to be within her scope. She can get that, and that's what the Breeders' Cup Distaff is run at. There aren't races really run at a mile and a quarter, really giant, significant races at a mile and a quarter for fillies and mares. I get it, the Alabama. I get it, the Delaware Handicap. But really, other than that, there's really not a heck of a lot that's run at those sort of distances anymore. So I don't know what there really is to gain by running her at a mile and a quarter in a race like that. Because she's realistically not going to have to run at those sort of distances. A mile and an eighth, if the distaff is your goal, run her in a race like the Cotillion, slight turn back, get her a little bit more two-turn experience, and then decide, does she need one more prep before the Breeders' Cup Distaff, or are you content just training her up to it? You know that 2 turns isn't an issue. You know she has the ability to sit or go. That would just be the way that I would approach it. And on the flip side, with Point of Honor, I would just be saying, I don't care who shows up. The mile and a quarter is going to be my friend. The Alabama is my race to win. As far as the rest of the field is concerned, I spoke about it a little bit when we talked about this race in the preview show. Off topic, nice horse. Don't think she's quite as good as these other ones. Champagne Anyone, nice filly, not a superstar. Okay, this race didn't work out for her in Boxwood. I don't think this is her surface. I think she's a turf horse. So really it just boiled down to those top 2 horses, and that's how it played out. Guarana prevails. She gets the job done, answers the 2-turn question. I think she's just a little bit green. Whether you agree or disagree, let me know beneath the video player on YouTube or on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. I think her ducking out under the left-handed whip was just, she's not used to it. I think you get her a little bit more experience going 2 turns. I think she'll be just fine. Guarana gets the job done here with a 92 buyer and a 113 pace-adjusted Timeform US rating in the CCA Oaks. I'd like her to go to the Cotillion. I really want Point of Honor in a race like the Alabama at a mile and a quarter. So let's throw it into the stakes montage. A number of races to go over there. You've got racing from Del Mar, Monmouth, Woodbine, Saratoga, you name it. It's all in there. We'll go over those. When I come back, some quick thoughts. Rapid fire, then we'll go into the weekend's best as far as buyers are concerned, and we'll wrap things up. So here we go. Without further ado, stakes montage.
Mucho Unusual going to hook to the extreme outside, but running on. The whole picture changes as they come for home. Apache Princess gets the lead. A late run from Serenista. Mucho Unusual flying on the outside. Mucho Unusual, Apache Princess going to hit it together. Mucho Unusual, great ride from Joel Rosario. Top of the lane now, and Catalina Cruiser, ears pinned back. Has to bring out his best here. He has the talent, though. He has the class, and it's going to prevail in the end by the looks of it. Catalina Cruiser by just over a length. On the outside, Mongolian Groom is finishing gamely. Catalina Cruiser probably not at his best, fully extended today, but he gets the job done.
Cold Front drops back to 3rd, and then comes Moongate Warrior. They're a furlong from the finish. War Story, a tenacious customer on the inside of Bal Harbor, and it's an absolute thriller in the Monmouth Cup. Bal Harbor or War Story. Bal Harbor, War Story just won't surrender. He keeps coming back for more, and War Story outfinishes Bal Harbor, and they were more than 10 clear of Cold Front in a launch a bid as Coach Rock spurts away. Midnight Bizou now takes up the chase, opting for the rail run, and here she comes. Coach Rock's Midnight Bizou comes through now, and it's just a formality for Midnight Bizou. Never really asked for her best, striding out, and this very classy filly strolls in the Molly picture by a very solid length. Coach Rocks ran very well to the center of the course, and getting a reminder they're at the top of the stretch, and Bird's Eye View clings to the lead. Just Howard on the outside, and Divisadero are both chasing with determination. It's Bird's Eye View, Divisadero, and Just Howard. Just Howard bursts to the front. Divisadero going with him. Divisadero or Just Howard. Just Howard wins the Ocean. I'm so fancy. will try to finish the job now. Toriga looking for room, and competition of ideas is fully extended. There's an eighth of a mile to go. I'm So Fancy continues on. Toriga's trying to get her, and so is competition of ideas. It's I'm So Fancy, competition of ideas, the final surge. I'm So Fancy, coast to
Double
coast.
medal, Seek and Destroy sticks to the rail and down the outside, Speedy Soul. It's Sister Peacock in front, and now in the clear, Seek and Destroy. Seek and Destroy coming on strongly, and Seek and Destroy races to the front. On the outside, Speedy Soul, but it's all Seek and Destroy, and has gone on to score well in the Ontario Colleen by about 2 3/4 lengths. Speedy Soul second, third Sister Peacock, and Carnival Colours fourth.
Stretch. Ohio is looking for somewhere to go. Ohio needs a space right behind the leaders. Bowie's Hero running a big one on the outside as well. And Ritzy AP's battling back. Suddenly Catapult's under pressure, did not go on. Bowie's Hero did. And Bowie's Hero's drawing clear. Bowie's Hero and Flavion Pratt have won the Eddie Reed.
Sunday in front. Vale in second. Now Ruby Notion finishing well down the outside with Alexandra and Magic Spell in the center. Summer Sunday in front. Very wide on the track are Alexandra, Ruby Notion, Magic Spell right through in the center for Patrick Husbands. Summer Sunday in front. In second, Magic Spell, but it's Summer Sunday. A perfect stakes performance. Summer Sunday, a length and a half, Magic Spell, then Alexandra.
Full-out drive has dropped back to third. They're into the stretch. It is Golden Award, who comes down to the eighth pole in front. Wildcat, and on the inside, She's a Julie continues to battle, but Golden Award has the lead down to the 16th pole and is getting away under Tyler Gaffleone. Golden Award takes the Shuvi by 2 lengths. Wildcat was second, and then it was She's a Julie and Pink Sands.
Some quick thoughts from the stakes montage. San Clemente, I'm dying for Overemphasize to get an outside in the clear trip throughout. I know she eventually was able to get through, but man, this is 2 trips in a row where or 3 trips in a row now, where I've watched her and she's in and amongst horses and she comes with a nice late bid, but it takes her so long to get extricated from there. I'd love to see what happens when she is out in the clear and allowed to run the way that Mucho Unusual was, where you just let her roll from the back of the pack. Maybe it's a little bit of crying over spilt milk, but I'd love to see what Overemphasize can do in an instance where she's just allowed to roll. The San Diego Catalina Cruiser was not nearly as impressive as I would have hoped he was winning that race. Visually, it was not spectacular. He did what he needed to do. The speed figure came back reasonable, but not great, 98. I think he deserves the shot to go longer, and it sounds like, as of today, according to John Sadler, Gift Box, he had to miss a workout, so it seems unlikely he'll be ready for the Pacific Classic. The connection seemed to be leaning toward the Pacific Classic with Catalina Cruiser. I think you need to find out, and the good news is it's early enough where if the 1.25 miles doesn't work, you still have time to turn him back and get him ready for either the Dirt Mile for the Breeders' Cup or the Sprint if you really wanted to get crazy. But you have time to sort of plot accordingly. Take the shot there in that 1.25 mile race out at Del Mar. Find out if you can do it. If you can, obviously you have plenty of options. But he's going to need to do a heck of a lot better visually anyway than he did in the San Diego. I was a little bit disappointed in that. The Monmouth Cup War Story battle back on the inside. I mean, what is there to say? I've been chasing Bal Harbor. This is basically just going to sound like I'm rehashing terrible memories. I've been chasing Bal Harbor over the past 3 starts. And again, this is another instance I thought he finally was home and he gets run down, or he gets sort of come back on down on the inside by War Story. It is what it is. The Molly Pitcher, nothing more to add. Basically a paid workout for Midnight Bisou, in my opinion. Oceanport, only a 4-horse field. The Visadero, he left really badly out of the gate. I suppose you could make the argument that cost him the race, but at the same time, I thought he had every opportunity to go by Just Howard down the lane, and he didn't do so. The Matchmaker, 3-horse field, nothing really to add there. Ontario Colleen, Seek and Destroy, to me, she never really looked all that comfortable until they got to the straightaway and she was able to pull away. Makes me wonder what really was in that field for her to look as uncomfortable as she did throughout the majority of the run and still be able to just blow the doors off that field. Just another one of those instances where in Chad you must trust, because what's the point of trying to beat him in some of these turf races? Eddie Reed, big effort from Bowie's Hero, big finish from Marquis Water. Illman and I, we go 1-2. I had Marquis Water, he had Bowie's Hero in that race. Bowie's Hero, I think the 1.8 miles, that suits him much better than it does Marquis Water. I just think he got running too late, and I said it going into it, coming out of that stakes preview. When you watch Marquis Water, don't let the turn dissuade you. He's going to be basically under the whip, rounding the far turn. He just doesn't get around him very well. Once he gets to the straightaway, he finishes like a freight train. He's the kind of horse that I think he could be a little bit sneaky. If they choose to run in like the Del Mar handicap, mile and 3/8, I understand that. He'd be the kind of horse I'd be fascinated to see shipped to a place like Woodbine, where you have that just enormous stretch run, and maybe the mile or a mile and 8's a little bit sharp for him, but they do have longer races out and a mile and a half. That long stretch, to me, that could be a great sort of advantage for a horse like Marquis Water, as opposed to some of these other places. But again, the connections will do right by the horse. Another race at Woodbine, the Royal North, impossibly wide trip for Alexandra. And I just look at that and I go, with a better ride and a better trip, she's going to threaten in that race. She's not embarrassed at all, losing by roughly 2 lengths, right around there, somewhere in that ballpark. Just an impossibly wide trip throughout. I just don't know why she was hung so wide running that far turn. In the Chuvy, nothing really special to add there. Nice effort from Golden Award. Wildcat, I feel like she probably needed the race, and she'll probably take a step forward here in her second start off the bench. Keep in mind that was her first race since the Breeders' Cup Distaff, so she's been gone for some time. So there you have it, some quick thoughts on the stakes montage. Agree, disagree, let me know on Twitter at Bernier_Matt or beneath the video player on YouTube. Let's take a look at the weekend's best as far as buyers are concerned. 2-year-old males, Basin, an 86 and a maiden special up at Saratoga. 2-year-old fillies on dirt, Fair Maiden, a 91. And I say, keep in mind, I say on dirt. The synthetic races are lumped into the main track area. So this is a 91 buyer for Fair Maiden in a maiden special weight at Arlington Park, which we obviously know is a synthetic surface, not necessarily dirt. 2-year-old males on grass, 3-way tie. Please call me back. Barilko and Fantastic Breeze, 69s in a maiden special at Woodbine. 2-year-old fillies on grass, Fly So Pretty, is 68 in a maiden special up at Saratoga. 3-year-old males, we spoke about him. Maximum Security, he earns a 102 in the Haskell. 3-year-old fillies, First Star and Guarana, they tie with 92 buyers. One in a maiden special down at Del Mar, the other one in the Coaching Club American Oaks. 3-year-old males on grass, Halliday, an 86 and a non-winners of one other than at Saratoga. 3-year-old fillies on grass, Seek and Destroy, we saw in that stakes montage, the 86 in the Ontario Colleen. Older males on dirt, again, unfortunately for me, War Story and Bal Harbor, they tie with 101s in the Monmouth Cup, but obviously War Story is the one that prevails. Older fillies and mares on dirt, we saw Golden Award win the Chuvy with a 93 buyer. Older males on turf, we saw Bowie's Hero win with a 98 buyer, in the Eddie Reed. And the older fillies and mares on grass, Momanu with a 95 winning the Crest up at Saratoga, going 5.5 furlongs. There you have it, the weekend's best as far as buyer speed figure performances are concerned. However you've been listening, thank you for doing so. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, which I guess would really be Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, the YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify. I've got that thing memorized like clockwork. However you listen, please rate, review, and subscribe. Really appreciate it. Any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, opinions, whatever you want to throw out there, ideas, anything, let me know beneath the video player on YouTube or to me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. I will be back on Thursday with the preview edition. We'll probably be taking a look, at least talking about the Jim Dandy in some fashion, as well as some other racing coming up this weekend from across the country. So until then, best of luck however you play, whatever you play, and wherever you play. This has been the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show.